Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're preparing for Cambridge AS and A-level accounting, you already know that paper 9706 demands some absolutely rigorous strategic thinking. It's not just about balancing the books, it's about proving you understand the underlying financial architecture. But here is something you might not know. Principal examiners consistently report activity-based costing, and specifically the identification of cost drivers as one of the most misunderstood, heavily penalized areas in the entire syllabus. It's true, students are losing massive marks here, and it's almost never because they can't do the basic math. It's because they fundamentally misunderstand the anatomy of high-tariff command words. When an exam asks you to analyze versus evaluate, or explain versus to what extent, they are asking for entirely different cognitive approaches. Today, I am giving you an examiner's insider look at exactly how to dissect these 9 to 15 mark questions, master your time allocation, and deploy the critical thinking strategies that actually get rewarded. We are going to isolate the command words, identify the hidden constraints of the prompts, and fix those common mistakes right now. I want you to notice the sheer weight of this warning on your screen. This isn't just some casual observation I made up. This is a direct quote summarizing the #1 mistake straight from the Cambridge Principal Examiner reports. The classic trap is using the wrong approach for the wrong context. What does that actually mean for you sitting in the exam hall? It tells us immediately that rote memorization of formulas is practically useless on its own. You might know every single mechanical step of an activity-based costing calculation, but if you apply a volume-based cost driver to an activity that is strictly driven by the number of machine setups, your entire subsequent calculation literally falls apart. You'll lose the initial marks, and worse, your final evaluative conclusion will be based on flawed data. The stakes here are incredibly high. Today, we are going to learn how to actively dodge this classic trap by looking through the examiner's lens. All right, so here is our roadmap for today's masterclass. We'll start with the core principles, move into the procedural framework, break down the method mark strategy, and finally, tackle critical evaluation. Let's dive straight into part 1, core theoretical principles and building your foundation. Before you even think about reaching for your calculator, you absolutely have to understand the theoretical architecture of activity-based costing because Cambridge grades you across 3 very distinct cognitive domains. Let's look at this through the eyes of 2 types of students I see all the time. Let's call them Alex and Sam. Alex is highly technical. Give Alex a formula and it's executed perfectly. Alex dominates assessment objective 1, knowledge and understanding. Alex knows exactly what a cost pool is. Alex also crushes AO2 analysis, interpreting data to calculate overhead absorption rates without breaking a sweat. But then there's Sam. Sam is a creative, conceptual thinker. Sam might occasionally mess up a decimal point, but Sam excels at AO3, evaluation. Sam understands the bigger picture of whether ABC is actually appropriate for the specific business in the case study. Here is the hard truth. To get the top grade, you can't just be an Alex and you can't just be a Sam. Successful candidates demonstrate clear, balanced competence across all 3 of these domains. You have to calculate accurately, yes, but you also have to argue effectively. And this brings us to a secret weapon for maximizing your AO1 and AO2 scores. Principal examiner reports specifically highlight that candidates who successfully make cross-topic connections achieve significantly higher marks. Listen, if you're answering an ABC question, please don't just trap it in an isolated box. Connect it. Show the examiner how a change in the cost driver rate might ripple out and impact inventory valuation. Explain how it affects pricing decisions, or how it completely shifts the break-even analysis for a specific product line. Sam usually gets this right, while Alex misses it by focusing too narrowly on the numbers. When you link precise definitions and causal relationships to other areas of the syllabus, you are screaming to the examiner that you have a master-level holistic grasp of the subject. That is how you dominate the marking bands. So the crucial question becomes, once you actually have that theory locked down, how do you execute it under pressure? When you turn over that exam paper, the clock is ticking, and you are faced with a massive, intimidating table of overhead costs, activities, and complex stimulus material. What is the exact tactical sequence you should follow? Enter the standardized 4-step sequence. This is the 3-step question scan expanded into a full procedural framework. First, identify the given information. Highlighters are literally your best friend here. Isolate the constraints in the prompt immediately. Second, break the problem into logical steps. You need to untangle the cost pools from the cost drivers before you do any math. Third, solve systematically. Calculate your cost driver rate first before you try to allocate the total overhead. Now, this is usually where students hit a massive roadblock. I watch students like Sam struggle with structural precision here. spending 15 minutes on a 5-mark section completely destroying their pacing. When you get stuck, you need a cognitive strategy. Step back and apply the paragraph balance formula. State the calculation, show the working, interpret the result. That's it. Don't overwrite. And fourth, check for reasonableness. If your complex ABC calculation suggests that a basic, low-volume product is somehow absorbing 90% of the massive machine setup costs, pause. Does that make any logical sense? No. A 10-second reasonableness check will save you from compounding errors that could cost you an entire grade boundary. Within that framework, your data interpretation skills have to be razor sharp. You must be able to accurately extract data from incredibly dense texts and tables. But mere extraction isn't enough for A-level. You have to interpret the causal relationships. Ask yourself, why does an increase in the number of complex production runs directly increase the inspection costs? Understanding the why behind the numbers is exactly what allows you to draw those evidence-based conclusions that examiners are desperately searching for in your answers. All right, let's pivot to Section 3, the method mark strategy. This is all about earning points for your process. Okay, before we solve the hardest part of the evaluation problem coming up, I need to pause our session for a quick second. If you are serious about crushing your Cambridge exams, you need consistent, high-level strategies just like this one. So right now, hit that subscribe button for the channel, Ace the Exams IGCSE Owen Day-Leggles, at handle @acetheexam_IGCSE, and make sure you turn on the notification bell. We drop weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies that you simply cannot afford to miss. Okay, back to the masterclass. Let's rewrite a flawed approach. If there is one equation you take away from this explainer, let it be this. Clear working plus correct terminology plus professional format equals method marks. Look, we all make calculation errors under pressure. You might accidentally punch a 6 instead of a 9 into your calculator, but in Cambridge exams, the analytical process is weighted just as heavily as the final mathematical digit. If you show clear notation, if you explicitly label your calculations with correct terminology like cost driver rate per machine hour and present it in a professional format, the examiner can track your logic. If your underlying logic is flawless, you will pick up valuable method marks even if your final answer is wrong. Failing to present your workings clearly is a completely unforced error. Now, to help you execute this perfectly and never mix up your drivers, I want to teach you the visual story method. This is a brilliant memory hack to encode activity-based costing concepts deep into your brain. Instead of just memorizing a boring table of drivers from a textbook, I want you to visualize the physical, real-world causal link. For example, if the activity is material handling, don't just look at the words. Actually picture a heavy-duty forklift physically moving a massive wooden pallet of raw materials across a busy warehouse floor. What actually drives the cost of running that forklift? Is it the volume of the product? No, it's the number of material requisitions or the number of physical movements it has to make. By visualizing that physical story, assigning the correct driver to a specific activity becomes totally intuitive, rather than just a stressful memory test. So let's say you've nailed the theory. Your mathematical process is pristine, your workings are clear, you're sitting comfortably in the middle marking bands. But how do you cross that threshold? How do you unlock the absolute top tier and demonstrate true evaluative thinking to the examiner? Welcome to our interactive Pause and Practice workshop. Let's look at Assessment Objective 3, Critical Evaluation. Top-scoring candidates don't just accept the exam data at face value. They demonstrate deep evaluative thinking by questioning the given assumptions. Is the cost driver the company chose actually the best representation of their overhead consumption? They consider different perspectives. Sure, ABC provides more accurate product costing, but is it way too expensive and administratively heavy for the specific small business to implement? Let's do a quick spot the flaw exercise. Imagine a student writes, yes, the company should use ABC because it's more accurate. Think about it. What are the flaws there? First, it lacks context. Second, there's no data backup. Third, it completely ignores the counterargument. To fix this, you rewrite it by justifying decisions with hard evidence. You must say, yes, they should implement ABC because, as calculated in Part A, the traditional method is actively undercosting their low-volume custom products by $15 per unit, which is actively destroying their profit margins. However, management must weigh this against the $5,000 implementation cost. See the difference? That is a full-mark, top-band response. Which brings us perfectly into our final and undeniably most vital section, the ultimate examiner warning. Context is king. The examiner reports are incredibly, explicitly clear about this. The absolute biggest pitfall, the place where the most intelligent students drop marks, is the trap of providing memorized, generic responses. Let's compare a generic answer to a top-tier one right now. A generic answer reads exactly like a textbook definition. ABC is beneficial because it allocates overheads based on multiple cost drivers rather than a single blanket absorption rate. That is a true statement, but it will earn you minimal marks. Why? Because it could apply to literally any business on Earth. A context-specific answer reads like this. For Smith's Furniture Limited, transitioning to ABC reveals that their custom oak dining tables are actually loss-making. The traditional blanket labor rate completely failed to capture the high number of specific machine setups required for those custom orders. Do you see the massive difference there? The top candidate directly, relentlessly links every single evaluative point to the specific business scenario provided in the stimulus material. Context isn't just important, it is your golden ticket to an A-star. To ensure you consistently hit these marks, I want to synthesize everything into the last 5 minutes review checklist. When you hear the invigilator say you have 5 minutes left, do not just stare at the clock or start wildly guessing. Run this protocol. Number 1, verify context specificity. Skim your essays. Did you actually name the business and reference their specific products, or did you just write the company? Number 2, check format and presentation. Are your workings clear? Did you label your drivers? Number 3, ensure justified recommendations. Go to your evaluate questions. Did you actually answer the command word with a firm, evidence-backed conclusion that considers both sides? This checklist is your ultimate safety net. So I leave you with this final provocative challenge. The very next time you sit down with a complex Cambridge accounting paper, are you gonna fall back into the classic trap of relying on generic answers, rushing your math, and ignoring the context? Or are you ready to actively apply this examiner's lens? The choice is entirely yours, but the blueprint for absolute success is now right in front of you. To truly master this, you need consistent strategy. So right now, hit the subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O&A levels at handle @aceexam_IGCSE. Turn on that notification bell for our future exam hacks and drop down into the comments and tell me what your target grade is for this paper. Commit to it. Go pull up a past paper immediately and practice this exact deconstruct, solve, and evaluate framework. Keep pushing for that top tier of understanding, and I will see you in the next masterclass.